Dalvin Cook was talking about he wants James to get 15 or 20. I don't know if I would have gone in that range either, but this is a really solid football player. I think at least for probably 3 years, this is going to age pretty well.
All right, so you like the contract. You think it's a pretty good deal. I guess what Cook was looking for, because there was a question about what it is that he wanted. Did he want Saquon money? Did he want did he want to match that Christian McCaffrey, that contract that kind of seemed to be a landmark one in recent days for running backs, and yet he didn't get as much, but obviously still got paid well. But it sounds like he really wanted the guaranteed, and it looks like he got that guaranteed money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just that's always the biggest factor in all of these. So obviously it's a 4-year, $48 million contract. But again, once we get past the second year and into the third year, then you start to reevaluate where everything is at.
All right, Dalton, apparently, you see, Boy Green, he does a lot for this show. One of the things he does is he's in a lot of ways, because he's been doing the web for a while. He's kind of as we say, a technical genius in this world. And I am still a technical neophyte. But apparently the first minute or two of our show, we weren't live for some reason. Even though I hit the live button, we didn't go live. So I don't know what happened, but we are live now. So don't worry. No need to worry about it. Just remind people today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, the mattress and sofa outlet right here in central New York. And we'll find out a little bit more about our friends from Box Drop in a little bit. All right. We did touch on James Cook, so we'll move to some other running backs. I want to get to them all. This guy, we hadn't heard a lot because something happened to him on the 4th of July, but he's back at practice now. Let's talk about the return of Naji Harris, who's now with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a Chargers team now. They were looking to improve a running back this offseason. Harris, obviously a productive veteran, and they got the first-round pick of Marion Hampton, and even the youngster from last year's draft, Kamani Vidal. You know this Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman-led team is going to want to run the football. I mean, you guys even saw that in Western New York and Buffalo when Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator of the Bills. Anywhere he's been, he wants to emphasize the run game. That does get a little bit harder with the injury, the season-ending injury to Rashawn Slater, their left tackle. But to have a committee of Hampton and Harris, and even if Vidal works his way in that, it's a really physical group. I think that's always what Jim Harbaugh is trying to emphasize, whether he was at San Fran or Stanford or Michigan or now with the Chargers. He wants to be the most physical team on the football field. Najee Harris brings that size. We know he's durable. He's productive generally throughout a whole season. Is he the best back in the league? Not necessarily, but I think a rotation between him and Hampton especially is going to be a load for opposing defenses to deal with, as long as the Chargers can get things blocked up right up front.
Yeah, let me ask you. I mean, we have these guys that, they have the hot camp, or they're kind of the talk of camp, or the talk of the preseason. I know we only have one game under our belt at this point, 1 week of preseason in the books in terms of games. You mentioned Omarion Hampton, so let's talk about him. I mean, there's a lot of buzz in the fantasy circles about him. He's moving up draft boards, as they say. Give me your early evaluation on this guy, and how much should we expect to see him play, especially now that we know Naji is back in the fold now?
You're going to still see him play a lot. Look, first-round running backs don't get taken unless they're going to play a lot. And Hampton proved at North Carolina that he's a workhorse. And if something were to happen to Harris, or if they felt like Hampton had the hot hand, he's a guy capable of taking that 25 carries a game. He carried a huge workload at North Carolina. He continued to power through even when things weren't always ideal there, especially last year after Drake May leaving and the quarterback situation wasn't great. And what you're going to get out of him is two things. Straight line speed. If he's in the open field, he's a lot faster than he looks at 220 pounds, and he's physical. Behind Ashton Jeanty, he had the second most yards after contact in college football over the last 2 years, and Jeanty's the one guy that went ahead of him in the draft, right? So Hampton, you're getting a straight line, physical runner. Is he going to be the quickest laterally? Not necessarily, because he's a little bit bigger of a back, but he's got good quickness for his size. But size and speed and physicality is what you're getting, and that's exactly what Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman were looking for in a lead back.
All right, Jets fans may not want to hear about this guy, but let's talk about him because he's been a camp talk as well. Ran back a kickoff, right? I mean, my goodness, in the preseason opener, Tayvon Henderson, another name that's moving up fantasy draft boards. What are you hearing about Tayvon? What can you tell us about him?
He's a home run hitter. I mean, honestly, that's what you see. What you saw on the speed with the kickoff, and I don't know that he did that a whole lot at Ohio State. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I think it's a great role for him, and especially when you talk about a backfield with a couple of veterans in Stevenson and Gibson. The one thing about Henderson is that he was just never able to take on the full workload at Ohio State, whether it be because of injuries or last year they had Quinshon Judkins alongside him taking half the carries or a little more than that. Henderson is a home run hitter. He's that guy. It almost feels like that guy in baseball that's like the platoon hitter that's still going to hit 25 home runs or so because you just know what you're getting out of him on those days, right? Henderson's a bit like that. So the durability, considering his time at Ohio State, is a little bit of concern. Like if he were to be the lead back and get 25 to 30 touches a game, something like that, I'd be a little worried about that just considering what we saw at Ohio State. But man, oh man, if you keep this guy at about 15, 17 touches a game, he's liable to hit a home run or two every single week. The speed is absolutely dangerous. It's very real. That's going to translate to the regular season.
All right, home run hitters, let's talk about him. This guy may go both ways. A lot of people think he'll be a home run hitter taken near the very top of the draft. Let's talk about Travis Hunter and what his impact might be, and how much do you think he will play both sides of the ball?
I think he's going to play a decent amount on both sides. I think it's going to be less so on defense because their depth at cornerback is better when you have Tyson Campbell, Jordan Lewis. I like Jerrion Jones in the slot. He was a rookie last year out of Florida State. I think he's going to play less on defense, probably still get some reps, especially in the case of an injury or somebody gets banged up during a game, something like that. But the main focus is going to be on offense and the idea that he and Brian Thomas Jr. can be one of the more dynamic receiving pairs in the league, right? Obviously, Liam Cohen is going to want to he's going to want to reel Trevor Lawrence in a little bit. Kind of got happy with throwing the deep ball too much last year, but I think that's the idea. Brian Thomas Jr. showed us an ability after the catch to win. Travis Hunter has an ability after the catch to win. I think you're going to see this offense operate a lot like Liam Cohen ran it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where you're just getting the football to your athletes, and there's very few better, if any better athletes than Travis Hunter. He's a true 3-level threat, but I'm excited to see what those two guys can do close to the line of scrimmage and then after the catch with the ball in the hands.
All right, as I mentioned earlier, and unfortunately, I guess we weren't live at the moment, Boy Green is not with us today, but he is traveling in the car. I said, hey, pop up in the comments if you want, Paul, and he is indeed popping up for all kinds of things, so let me bring in some more of his questions, Dalton. Let's start with this one about Jordan Love. We heard about the thumb surgery, not on his throwing hand, the opposite hand. They expect him to be ready for the opener. Talk about what this might mean, or does it mean anything?
I think it's just when you talk about any time that he misses in practice, especially with such a young receiving core and a guy like Matthew Golden, their first-round rookie receiver since 2002, just getting that chemistry and a lack of reps going into week one is maybe a slight concern. And then you talk about the mechanics of still a left hand being injured. It could change some handoff dynamics. It could change how much you're going under center, which they like to do in that offense. But as far as it being a major concern, like let's say like his knee injury last year was early in the season, I don't think it's as big an issue. You still have almost a month to go before the season actually starts. So get rested up. Don't worry about the preseason. Jordan Love has played enough that, preseason reps aren't going to matter too much for him. I think it's just about getting the wheels back on when he gets back into practicing 100%, especially with all the young players they have on that offense.
Well, look, there is a bubbling story off the field of football that we have to talk about today, and that's what's going on in Nevada and Jon Gruden and his lawsuit. Nevada Supreme Court rules in his favor. What Gruden is trying to do here, and this goes all the way back to the emails that were let out and then end up costing him his job just a few games into the season with the Raiders. According to Gruden, really upset their entire season and didn't feel that what happened there was very, very fair. But Gruden's trying to get to the bottom of who leaked these emails and were they indeed leaked by the NFL. The NFL making some pretty wild claims in court, and right now the courts are siding with Gruden. So we may get to the bottom of this at some point. Let's talk about this whole Jon Gruden thing. Sounds like inevitably, and I don't know if it ever happens in the NFL, Gruden does want to get back to coach, but he wants to clear this matter up first, or at least get his side of the story out there. Let's talk about it.
Well, I think it's a matter of even if he doesn't coach in the NFL again, because even recently he said he'd be interested in coaching college football as well. I think he is. Obviously, he's going to try to clear his name. There's two sides to any story. And I think more so than anything that actually went down, the NFL, and there's always enough conspiracies going around the NFL, it's probably going to be, is it a matter of violating any sort of policy of privacy, right? When you talk about private messages and things like that. So there's a lot of intricate details to go into that. They have to timeline everything out and go back and find everything that's involved with this. But I do think it is a matter of Gruden really trying to claim, even if there was some sort of wrongdoing, trying to figure out how he can find a road back to coaching, whether it is at the NFL or college level. Because, I mean, you can tell when he talks and when he does these videos and his stuff at Barstool, he still obviously loves it and he wants to do it again. I think he even made a comment recently in the past week about he would love to coach in the SEC in college football, right? That's like the college football haven, right? So I think he does want to get back into it, but obviously this is at the front of mind first. So he's going to try to figure that out, and we'll see where that goes, because there's two sides to everything on that.
Yeah, no question. Always two sides to every argument, as they say. Today's broadcast with Dalton and our live broadcast brought to you by our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, the mattress and furniture outlet. Let's just take a moment and hear a little bit more about our friends at Box Drop. Considering that we sleep nearly 1/3 of our lives, buying the right mattress is essential. At Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofa Outlet, you'll get a unique experience, one that saves you 30 to 70% off retail prices on top-of-the-line mattresses like Sapphire Sleep. At Box Drop, you'll schedule a mattress fitting appointment and get one-on-one service directly with Paul, the owner. No middleman. Family-owned, huge savings, no-pressure sales designed to save you time and money. And now Box Drop Syracuse has sectional sofas and love seats as well, with prices designed to fit your budget. Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofas. Set up your appointment today at boxdropsyracuse.com. I'll tell you what, our friends at Box Drop will save you a lot of money. I've been in there and tried those mattresses. They are fabulous, as they say, and at like 1/3 the price, it is awesome. All right, let's talk about some more kind of camp guys making some noise. We can't talk football this week without talking about this guy, Shadur Sanders, making some noise in preseason game number 1 for Cleveland. Still listed 4th on the depth chart. Dalton, what's going on in Cleveland? The Browns in another mess.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be looking at the depth chart necessarily until we get it down to cut day and they really have the 53-man roster set. But no, I thought he played very well on Friday. Look, I think you talk about a guy who was composed. He wasn't worried about the pressure of the moment. It felt like it was a bigger deal to the rest of us than it was to him, right? What you like to see is a kid go out there under all that pressure in a very weird pressure situation, because we never see that much hype on a preseason game, and go out there and just play his game. To me, he looked the same as he did at Colorado. He was accurate. He made good decisions. He very rarely put the football in bad spots. Yeah, he tried to improvise at times a little too much and make plays, but when you're not getting that many practice reps, you might as well go out there and try to make plays, right? I don't blame him for that one necessarily. To me, it was roughly the same guy that we saw at Colorado, and that's a guy that was really good, and most people had as a top 2 quarterback in this draft, if not, maybe top 3 at the lowest. But he's a good football player, and I think, despite the lack of physical tools, he knows how to play the position. It's one thing I've always liked about him. He knows how to play the position. To me, he can process and read the field like an NFL quarterback. So I think he's given himself a legitimate shot at this backup job, but he's got 2 more weeks to prove it here.
Yeah, no question about it. But, man, he's making some noise, and he looks so poised. That was the thing that I thought really stood out to me, was his poise, his command. He just looked like a vet. I know it's a preseason game. I never put much stock in preseason games. But did you see the same thing? Did you see a guy that looked like he had some poise?
Absolutely. He's always looked like that. And look, there was a ton of pressure on him at Colorado to between him and Travis Hunter, basically to single-handedly turn around a program. And they did that within 2 years. And eyeballs were on them, win or lose, every single week. I really don't think big situations are going to face him, because he was so undaunted all the time at Colorado. I watched him every week. And I think the one thing you can say, win or lose, is he was the same guy on the field all the time. He believes he can win any football game in any situation. If it's 2-minute drill, if it's a big game with a lot of noise and the crowd noise surrounding him, I think he's very good at drowning out that noise and not worrying about it. And, Cleveland's cursed with quarterbacks and they're trying to figure it out, and you're on the depth chart here. And he said all the right things through it all, right? He's like, listen, I still have to get better. I did some good things. I did some bad things. I got things to work on, and the depth chart will shake the way it shakes. I just have to go out there and play football. So I just love the mentality that he's taken out there with him through this whole process.
Yeah, probably getting some good advice from Pop too. I'm sure Pop knows the drill. I know he came in as a superstar. We're talking about Deion Sanders, but he sees what's going on in Cleveland, and he wants his son to succeed. So maybe he's getting some good advice on the sidelines as well. I told you Boy Green would keep popping in some questions. So he sees your Jets cap there, Dalton. He says he was at camp yesterday, as I mentioned to you. Unbiased question. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year, and why is it the Jets? Okay, we could expect no less from Boy Green. Let's talk about the New York Football Jets.
Well, I mean, everything lately for the Jets seems like a miracle when it goes right. So I'm not going to put them in the Super Bowl boat quite yet, even though things, coming out of camp and especially from Aaron Glenn seem a bit optimistic. I actually have yet to make my official Super Bowl pick. I'm kind of tied up between a few teams because I do think if they're healthy, I think Philadelphia's got a shot to repeat. And you feel like these quarterbacks in the AFC, right? Allen and Lamar and Burrow, they got to win one at some point, right? It's very rare that you see quarterbacks that good. I know we've seen guys like Dan Marino and guys like that in the past who were elite level players, legendary type quarterbacks, and didn't win one. But most of the guys that are as good as those three win one. I haven't made an official pick yet. That's probably coming in the next couple weeks. I think we're doing a prediction episode on our show at some point. But I think you're going to have a lot of the usual suspects. And I still think, and I know everyone's sick of hearing it, but you can't forget about Mahomes and the Chiefs, man. I mean, I know it's been 3 years in a row already. They've been there. But if they get healthier, especially if they get Rashee Rice healthy and off of, whatever suspension that he may get. But you're talking about Patrick Mahomes. You're talking about Andy Reid. It's just like the old days of Brady and Belichick. They're always going to be right there in position to get to the Super Bowl and possibly win it.
Dalton, we don't have to talk about Josh Allen. We know what he's capable of, but let's talk about the other two New York quarterbacks. I want to start with this guy, Justin Fields. He's, Boy Green putting a lot of eggs in this guy's basket. It's been an up and down, a little bit tumultuous early part of his career. He's still really young, and now he's got Aaron Glenn here sitting as a mentor. What do you think Glenn can do to shape and mold this piece of clay, and can he turn into truly a franchise quarterback for the Jets?
The second part is the hard part because we haven't really seen that in more than flashes, especially in Chicago when he got that extended chance, right? And last year he played decent football with the Steelers, albeit a bit conservative. And when they benched him, I think they were looking to get more aggressive with their passing game with Russell Wilson throwing it downfield. The second part, honestly, I think that's a low likelihood that he's the starter for the next 8 to 10 years. I do, but I think when you talk about Justin Fields, Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand are going to want to make his life easier, right? I don't think he's a guy that you want going out there throwing the ball 45 times, right? There's very few guys in the NFL like that anyway. But what you saw in the first preseason game, I think, is everything that you want to see out of this Jets team and what Aaron Glenn is trying to do. They want to run the football. They want to get some play action concepts and trust their offensive line to protect in those moments. And then they want to be the more physical team on both sides of the ball. And to me, the encouraging part is they were just ready to play as a team. But as far as Fields goes, I don't think we should sit here and expect him to put up crazy numbers, because if he has to put up crazy numbers, I don't think the Jets are going to be very good. I think the idea is to be more physical, to get his legs involved, to win with play action. They don't have a ton of receiving options, right? They're very young at receiver. They're very young, obviously, at tight end. They may have the youngest tight end group in the league. So I think you want to keep this to 25, 30 attempts a game and really win with the running game and give him the supporting cast that he needs to play his role.
Well, Dalton, we may not see him on the field soon, but Jackson Dart certainly made an impression in preseason game number 1. Again, looked like he had things under control. Again, I use that word, poise, showed some poise in the pocket. Talk to me about when you expect the Giants to go to Dart. Are they better off not going to him at all this entire season? Would that be the ideal strategy for the Giants? That's what I happen to think it is, and I hope that that's what it ends up being this season.
No, I agree. I think for me, and the adjustment he's making coming from Ole Miss and that offense, that's a very college-y offense. That's the best way I can put it. He does need time to adjust to just life in the NFL and how NFL offenses work and how Brian Daboll's offense works. Now, I do think there's a chunk of it that's going to be tied to wins and losses, right? If Russell Wilson is 3-6 in his first 9 games, I think then the heat really starts to turn up. I think the Giants, with their defense, with bringing in the veteran in Wilson and having this idea that Dart is going to sit back and be the understudy, they want to win some games in the process. And Brian Daboll and Joe Shane really need to win some games in the process. So if the Giants are something, in the wild card race when we get into mid to late November, I think you're going to see Dart sit the whole year until maybe they're mathematically eliminated. But I do think a part of this is going to be tied to wins and losses and just how Russell Wilson is performing and how this offense looks with Wilson. Because look, the idea of it, of getting Wilson, of getting even Jameis Winston and then drafting Jackson Dart is they need to get vertical. They were missing that with Daniel Jones. He was in this 15 to 20-yard bubble near the line of scrimmage. Yeah. They're trying to get vertical. They have a bunch of really good deep throwers on the team now, including Dart. You saw that in the preseason game with the touchdown. But that's the idea, is they need a vertical passer. If Wilson is productive for the entire regular season, I think you'll see him play the entire regular season.
All right, let's work our way over to this comment by Boy Green, which is in my list of questions here as well. We got some guys that are having some contract issues. James Cook might be solved now, but Micah Parsons is not solved. Trey Hendrickson is not solved. Terry McLaurin is not solved. Do you see all of these guys staying with their current teams? Is there any mishmash here that you could see going wrong as they all continue to either hold in or hold out of camp?
I think the most likely thing for this year is that they're all with their same teams. I mean, all three of those guys are just so important, right? Trey Hendrickson is the Bengals' only legitimate pass rusher. Micah Parsons basically is the Cowboys' defense. And Terry McLaurin, look, some people want to say Washington is a dark horse Super Bowl contender with everything Jane Daniels there and all that, but they're not without Terry McLaurin. They take a step back. I'm not sure I'd pick him to make the playoffs without Terry McLaurin. That's how important he is to their team. So I think for this year, all three of them eventually are going to sign. It's going to go right down to the last minute. We've seen even last year, there was a couple of situations in San Francisco where I think it was Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk signed like the week of week one coming up, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
It's one of those things where I think for this year, they're all going to stick around. If you told me a guy next offseason that I think could be playing for a new team, I'll say Trey Hendrickson. That just seems to have been on tenuous ground for a long time. He's a little bit older, obviously, than a guy like Parsons, and I think there's still some teams with pass rush needs that would love to have Trey Hendrickson even at 31, 32 years old.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, it kind of feels that way, although we'll see what they can do contract-wise with him. Hey, Dalton, take a minute since I haven't given you this opportunity yet. Tell people a little bit about what's going on at PFF, and go ahead, feel free to do a little plug for PFF.
Oh, we got a lot going on right now, Jim. You're talking about we've got a brand new set of betting tools that just dropped in the PFF app that you can download now. Those just dropped yesterday. Player prop tools, matchup insights, coverage breakdowns, all sorts of things like that. A brand new set of betting tools. If you're a gambler, hop in on some of the best tools in the business. We've got a PFF Plus annual subscription on the website. That's $20 off right now. And then, as always, you can find me and Trevor Sikkema and Max Chadwick, the PFF NFL show on YouTube and the PFF College Football show on YouTube. If you're fans of either or both of those, subscribe to those on YouTube. Catch me on both of them during the season. It's going to be a whole lot of fun breaking down. I don't even know how many different football games during the week between the two, but it's going to be a whole lot of fun on both shows this season.
Well, we got this cool thing in TV, Dalton, and that is sometimes when you screw up, you get a second take, right? You're out doing a live remote or something, and you flub the intro or something, and you get a second tape. Well, as I told you, I flubbed the beginning of the show for some reason. I thought I hit record and we were live, and we weren't. And Paul was calling me on the phone. I'm like, why is he calling me in the middle of a broadcast? And I realized, oh my God, it isn't live. We aren't rolling. So I'm going to go back and ask you to please have a second take on the James Cook situation in Buffalo. Obviously, story number one this morning. So let's go back and talk about it again. My question that I asked you at the top of the show was, how important is this to the Buffalo offense? Talk to me about James Cook and having him in the fold, and Buffalo now kind of having all their players at this point in the fold as they head into what they hope will be a Super Bowl contending season.
Yeah, I think organizationally, first, you talk about a team that's locked up a lot of their foundational players, right, that they consider the core pieces. Obviously, Cook, Christian Benford, obviously Josh Allen's been signed. Greg Rousseau is a huge player for them. Terrell Bernard, right? Signing your core players, especially young players, is so key to keeping that long-term health of your organization and of your roster, right? So that's first and foremost. And then when it comes to James Cook, look, I like the depth in their backfield with guys like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, but Cook is the lead dog there, right? When you talk about a guy who for us had the 8th best rushing grade per our PFF grading in the league last year, tied for the league lead with Derrick Henry rushing touchdowns. And ever since Joe Brady's taken this offense over, there's been a more balanced approach to it, right? They're the one big time contending team that doesn't have, an A.J. Brown on the outside, a Jamar Chase, some elite wide receiver on the outside. So they've become a balanced offense with Cook, with Allen, with this offensive line. He's really important with the way he can explode and create big runs at the second level. So it's a good signing, and I honestly think a fair contract for both sides.
And yeah, let's just finish on that note with Cook about the contract. So again, 4 years, $48 million extension, but 30 of it guaranteed. It seems like the guaranteed money was a big part of this. So again, comment on the contract itself. Is this a good deal for the Bills? Is it good for Cook? Is it good for both sides?
I think it's good all the way around. I do. So when you talk about, okay, it's 4 years and $48 million, 30's guaranteed. So then you really start to talk about this being truly a 3-year, and let's just cut it in 3/4, $36 million contract that he is certainly going to get. And I think when you talk about a guy with the level of production he's had, he doesn't have to carry such a huge volume like some other workhorse backs like Kyren Williams, who recently signed with the Rams, or even what Saquon Barkley did with the Eagles last year, because you've got other rushing threats. You've got a Ray Davis. You've got a Ty Johnson. You have a Josh Allen who takes a good amount of carries on a weekly basis. So I don't think he's going to wear down quite as much as maybe some of those guys. And if you talk about the first 3 years of that contract, he's going to be 26 next month. So you talk about getting him for age 26, 27, and 28. And then you start to think about things again. I think that's perfectly reasonable. It's a guy who he's in his prime. He's going to have a couple more years of his prime. I think it's really a worthy contract for both sides. It's a reasonable deal. It's not over the top, $20 million, something like that, that the Bills are paying. And then he's still getting a solid contract as one of probably the 10 best backs in football. So it's fair all the way around, I think, and perfectly reasonable for at least the next 3 years.
Hey, Dalton, how you feeling about the Bills as a Super Bowl contender? I mean, you said you haven't picked your team yet, so are they in the running? Let's talk about where they measure up in the AFC at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're still one of the 3 best teams. If you have number 17, you can win any week against anybody. That's the facts. Their offense has been ready to win a Super Bowl for years. To me, it's all about Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich and building this defense. For us, they were the 5th lowest graded defense in our PFF grading. They were the 2nd lowest coverage grade, that back 7 of that defense. And they've emphasized the defensive line a lot this offseason too. But to me, the problem with them in the postseason is just not being able to get stops when they need them. I'm not saying they have to be the best defense. When you have Josh Allen, you don't have to be the best defense in football. You just need to make stops when it really matters. And for the last 4 or 5 years, just haven't been able to do that in the postseason. If their defense can even somewhat catch up to their offense, they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender. They're one of the favorites. And honestly, they're a contender anyway, just because they have Josh Allen and how good he is. But the defense has to catch up some. That's what I'm looking for in big moments. I still think they're the clear favorites in the AFC East, even if it is just because of Josh Allen. It feels like it's deja vu all over with, how it was with Tom Brady every year. It was like, well, do they still have Tom Brady? Oh, okay, they're going to win the East, right? I feel the same way with Josh Allen, but the defense needs to catch up in those big moments against Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, whatever other great offense they're going to play in the postseason.
Hey, Paul's jumping in with this one. I mean, we talked a little bit about those 3 players, but why are the Commanders refusing to pay Terry McLaurin? They're not paying a rookie quarterback. He's on a rookie contract. Obviously, it looks like he's going to be a superstar. Why don't they want to get this over with? What do you think the snag is here in Washington?
It's just, to me, it's just the stigma of a guy that's going to be 30 years old next month. That's all it comes down to. It's just age. I mean, everybody, especially with football players, and we even see it happen more in baseball now, is the second you turn 30, they're already writing your eulogy. Unless you're a quarterback, that's different.
Yeah.
But they're writing the eulogy the second you turn 30, and all of a sudden they want to try to do that with McLaurin. But I mean, he showed us last year. I think last year was his best year since he's been in the league, and he's been so great ever since he was drafted. And now he's got a real quarterback. I go, why wouldn't you want this guy around when now you finally have a real quarterback to throw to him, and you've seen a year of what he can do? And receivers, look, do they always age into their mid to late 30s? Great, no. But when you talk about a guy maybe getting a 4-year extension, right? 30, 31, 32, 33. I don't see a reason not to do that, especially for as great as he's been to the organization. He's everybody's favorite player there in D.C. And he just, I would argue, he's coming off his best season, still proving he's one of the best threats in the NFL. To me, there's no reason not to get this done. It doesn't make sense. It's just the fact that, he's about to be 30 years old, so there's some giant drop-off coming. Again, to me, he's been so productive every year of his career, and now he's got a real quarterback. Let him ride that out for 3 or 4 years.
All right, 2 more before we let you go. I'll go back over to Boy Green in the car, who says, Dalton, you get paid to talk about football for a living. Who is the team in the media we aren't talking about but should be talking about? Is there a team that we should be talking about a little bit more this offseason as we get ready for the regular season?
It feels like the NFL gets covered so extensively.
It does.
That's always
too many stones, right?
That's always such a tough question. I think there's always certain aspects of teams that don't get talked about. Like I think about with the Giants and what their defense could be. That could be a big deal. One team I'm keeping –
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish up on the Giants, but I got one I got to jump in on and ask you about. Go ahead.
One team I'm keeping a close eye on because I just love the development of their quarterback since the second half of last year is the Carolina Panthers. I think there is a road here where if they improve their defense some, and I love what I saw. I know all the talk was about the Browns and Shadur in that game they were playing against Carolina, but man, oh man, Bryce Young looked so good in that preseason game, and he looked so good the second half of last year. That's a team in a division that's pretty open that I would keep an eye on, especially if he gets this chemistry going with his rookie receiver, Tedero McMillan. I really like what the Carolina Panthers have done this offseason. I'm excited to see a full season of this newfound Alabama-looking confident Bryce Young again. He's been a lot of fun to watch lately.
Yeah, what I was going to say is how come nobody, and I mean just about nobody, at least in my circles, is talking about Cam Ward? He was the number 1 overall pick. He's the quarterback of Tennessee. I know they're in a little bit of a state right now trying to get things back in order, but we always talk about the number 1 overall pick, especially if it's a quarterback. This guy's gotten no pub outside of Tennessee. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know, because he was so darn good in college last year. And if there wasn't a freak two-way season like Travis Hunter in the year that Ashton Jeanty had, a lot of other years, Cam Ward would have won the Heisman, honestly. But, I think it's part of it is just it's Tennessee. It's not one of the New Yorks or LAs or Dallas Cowboys that you think about when it comes to the big flashy headline teams, right? I think, Tennessee is still considered a team that's a work in progress. And I agree with that. I'm not expecting them to make a huge jump. I think this year is all about Cam Ward's development, but it really does feel like he's the least talked about number 1 pick ever, right? And it's like, and like even this past weekend, I don't even think his debut was nationally televised, right? And I had to go back and watch it, and I was like, oh yeah, Cam Ward played this week, didn't he? And I thought he looked pretty good. He made a couple of mistakes, but I mean, it's rookie stuff, playing on a new team, playing on the worst team in football from last season. So there's some things to work on, but no, it's going to be exciting to watch him too. He's got a tough week 1 matchup against the Denver Broncos in Denver. That might be a tough one, but I think that's really going to be a fascinating story to watch. Is can he turn around that franchise? Because they really have just had no answer at quarterback since they got rid of Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, final question. It comes from Paul in the car. Boy Green chiming in. He says, hey, Dalton, I need your honesty here. We've done interviews with you in the audio world for years, but now that you can see Lerch, would you prefer we go back to audio-only version? LOL.
No, absolutely not, man. The best thing about it is we get to see the great backgrounds that we each have back there. I see the Jets stuff, the Giants. I don't see my New York Mets represented in there somewhere.
Sometimes I'm wearing a Mets hat. You're right. I don't think I have any Mets paraphernalia, and I am a diehard Met fan, by the way.
Oh, okay, good. Then perfect. Yeah, then I'm absolutely good with seeing everything. You get my music wall behind me and all these signed CDs and all this nonsense have behind me. It's always good. That's always a fun part, is to just see what has everybody got in the background back there. Is that Malik Neighbors jersey, an LSU one?
Yes, it's an LSU Neighbors jersey there. Yeah, I can move the mic away a little bit. Yep.
There you go.
Beautiful
man,
number 8.
He and Jaden were just so good down there. It's crazy. But no, I mean, you dug up the LSU jersey to go with the football. I mean, that's always the fun part to it. But no, absolutely. The video version is just fine. I always love seeing the live reactions and the expressions, and who knows what sort of still shots and memes will come out of this show, because there's always something coming from me. But we'll have a lot of fun with this throughout the season.
Yeah, and I change up that jersey behind me. You'll notice from time to time, all of a sudden it'd be a Syracuse-related jersey, or Eli Manning I throw up sometimes. I got a bunch. I got a LaDainian Tomlinson powder blue Chargers.
If you get the
nicest jerseys.
If you get the Cuse going, my co-host on the college show, Max Chadwick, he went to Syracuse. So that's all. I don't know if you've ever had him on, but he's a Syracuse guy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Him and his brother's actually currently there right now. So it's a whole Syracuse family he's got going. Certainly on the college show, I hear about Cuse a lot more sometimes than I expect to, but we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, there's far too many of us Newhouse freaks roaming the countryside of the media, that's for sure. And I'm sure you've come across that, Dalton. Some of us nicer than others. But yes, we are out there in force, dare I say, Syracuse University and the great Newhouse School. So sometimes you'll see the classic 44 orange over my left shoulder. So, you can enjoy that when it pops up from time to time. I'm always looking for a little variety around here, so always looking to change things up. Dalton, I'm sorry we went a little overtime today. I do appreciate it, though. I apologize for the hiccup there at the beginning, even though you didn't know anything was going on. Neither did I. It was fantastic. We were doing a fantastic interview to nobody but ourselves for the first couple minutes, but we did make up for that and get back to that James Cook question. And for anybody that missed that, that's all you really missed. We were just talking a little bit about James Cook, so I feel like we covered that as well. As always, my friend, looking forward to talking to you. We're going to be live with you pretty much every Wednesday, and thanks for agreeing to come a little bit earlier today. Usually we do the show at 11, but we moved it to 10 because of actually Boy Green's responsibilities. And then as it turns out, we didn't need to because Boy Green got stuck. So, but he did a great job there in the comments. So thank you, Boy Green. Thank you to everyone else for chiming in. All right, Dalton, I'll let you go. I'm going to continue here a little bit and talk to react to what you said a little bit with our listeners. So as always, my friend, have a good one. We'll see you next week.
I appreciate you guys as always. See you next week.
All right, there he is. Dalton Wasserman giving us some love on the show today. Always a love to do that with Dalton. Terrific stuff from him, and just really, really fun to do that with him. So let me see if I can put myself here back in the screen here. Interesting. Okay, I don't want to be tiny. Oh, this is the guy I want to be right there in the middle. Okay, now I'm in the middle. It's just me. No Boy Green. So strange to be in this situation without Paul in this digital world. For those of you that know our audio show, the Manchild Show with Boy Green, when we were on the radio on the Score 1260, still see that logo over my shoulder right there. One of the things that was one of my trademarks in radio is I know there are some hosts out there, Colin Cowherd, Jim Rome, pick your favorite, radio audio host out there that love to do the solo show and just love to have the long takes and the long storytelling. I have always been a conversationalist. So I started my show, as we've mentioned several times on the digital platform here. It was Bud and the Manchild was the name of the show. And it was Bud Poliquin, who, again, still does a bit with us every week that you can watch every Tuesday. And myself. And this Manchild thing was a nickname that I acquired in college. Maybe one of these days when Paul and I have a little bit of time, I'll tell you the whole background of how I got the Manchild nickname. But I got that at Syracuse University while I was at the Newhouse School in college. And I have never loved the solo show. I like working with a partner. I like having a conversation. I like bouncing things off. Frankly, I think a lot of times in this medium, one of the hard things to do is to have time to think. If you don't prepare so much of what you're going to say, not have to write it down. I mean, obviously we're all good ad-libbers in this world, but that you can articulate your points and get out everything that you wanted. So, you got to do a certain amount of prep to be able to do that. But what I like about the two-person show is that you get a chance to think while the other guy is talking, and sometimes, or even look something up real quick or grab a little fact that you didn't maybe prepare in your notes. And it makes for a better show. Plus, I just like having conversations with another person versus I know I'm having a conversation with those of you that are watching me live right now. I understand we're having a conversation. There's a bunch of you out there having a conversation with me, but that conversation isn't interactive between the two of us. Of course, I can jump on over to the comments and see what you have to say over there, and that can start a little bit of a conversation. But outside of that, hey, it's a little bit different. So I'm not a big just talk to space, talk into a microphone and have this imaginary audience out there. I like to have that partner and then let that audience be entertained by that. But I will hang with you for at least for a little bit longer to react to some of the things that Dalton said. First of all, as you heard, and I apologize again for my technical snafu. I'm getting better and better at this every day, but and you live and learn from your mistakes. But I thought I hit roll record or roll live. There's a little click button on our little platform here to go live, and I think you have to hit it twice. So I hit it once, and I thought it was already rolling, and then I brought Dalton in and was playing the music and not paying any mind. And then I look over and I see my phone's ringing. Paul is calling me, and I'm like, am I recording? And I'm like, am I on? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I can see I'm not on. So now we're all on, but I hit that button a little bit late. So my apologies. We actually were there pretty close to 11. And then we didn't get into you guys till like 7 minutes after. So thanks for jumping in, and thanks for your patience, and thanks for dealing with my nonsense here of learning this digital world. But back to Dalton's comments. Okay. So let's start story by story here. First of all, let's start with James Cook. Very exciting news for Buffalo Bills fans. And I know a lot of people in Buffalo, and we were up there at camp last week, Boy Green and I were experiencing this. Everybody didn't seem all that concerned, or at least a lot of Bills fans. I ran into a lot of Bills fans that didn't seem all that worried. That didn't seem to think that it was a big deal. We even spoke to Sal Capaccio, our Bills insider from WGR. He's the sideline reporter for the Bills. And he was like, yeah, I mean, it's a loss, but, they got Ty Johnson. I'm like, what? James Cook is the best back in that backfield. Anybody that's watching the Buffalo Bills play football knows that. Those of you that are Jet fans, and I know that some of you are here this morning, know about Ty Johnson. He played for the Jets for a little while. He's okay. He wasn't that great for the Jets. He's actually played better for the Buffalo Bills. But, I mean, come on. You want him as your lead back? I mean, he's a third down gadget guy. You're not running him out like you're running James Cook out. So I know the snaps were split up there in Buffalo, and they weren't like way, way stilted towards Cook, but he's a very important ingredient. So to get him locked in now for 4 years, to get him back in camp, get some chances here. I don't know if we'll see him in preseason games or not. Maybe we'll get a peek at him at some point. But, to have him playing for the Buffalo Bills, I think is a big deal, especially since I still really, really have big questions about their receiving core and where it's at right now. I think that Keon Coleman is going to be a really, really important piece of the Bills this year if they are to get better offensively at the receiver position, because they still, to me, really lack the number one. I love Khalil Shakir. I always have trouble saying his name. It's like a tongue twister. But this is a guy that's a slot guy, and he's a possession type receiver to me more than he is a game breaker. So they need a guy like Holman, who, if you watched him at Florida State in college, I mean, he was acrobatic. He made some one-handed catches. I mean, he's really, really kind of a freak. So if he can bring that freak athleticism with consistency, that's what he's really lacking in the NFL. But with some consistency, dare I say, to the Bills, then the Bills will be much better off. So a little bit on James Cook, but good news again. And the contract is a 4-year extension. It's $48 million. So essentially he's getting paid $12 million a year, which is not that, Christian McCaffrey, I think it's 16, 17 million, somewhere in that neighborhood that they paid McCaffrey a couple of years ago. It's not quite the Saquon money, but I think it's in the tier where James Cook belongs. And I guess what him and his agent were really fighting for wasn't to go way up to McCaffrey country, but was instead to get massive guaranteed money. And he got a boatload, 30 million of that 48, 30 million of that 48 is indeed, guaranteed. So no matter what happens, he gets hurt, he's getting that money. So that's kind of cool. Very, very excited about that. All right, let me see if I can jump on over to the comments here. A couple of things popping up. All right, let's go over to Phil Lmer, who says, Manchild, don't know if you saw my comment yesterday. I don't think I did, Phil. I'm sorry. Was listening yesterday, and in 2016, Lemar ran for 199 and threw for 208. Louisville beat Syracuse 62-28. So that's a good point. Yeah, because we were talking, Paul looked up another game. Lemar roasted Syracuse twice. Okay, so you've got the game I was thinking about, Phil. So thanks for throwing that in the comments today, because we were talking about it on the Monday live show. And Boy Green did pull up another blowout that Louisville had against Syracuse. And Lemar only ran for, I think we had like 109 yards. And I was like, really? Boy, I remember him running. I thought it was 200 or over 200 yards. So this is probably the game that I was thinking of, 199 and threw for 208 in a 62-28 Louisville win, or beatdown, we should say, over the Syracuse Orange a few years back. So thanks you for that, Phil. Excellent. Thank you. See, that's what I love. We used to have a guy on our radio show, and unfortunately he passed just around a year ago, or somewhere in the last year. His name was Steve in North Syracuse. And you hear me getting almost a little choked up when I talk about him. Steve in North Syracuse has a really a place in my heart. He worked for the government. He had a government job. I always think it's the IRS, but it wasn't. He worked for like the Social Security Department or the Health Department or something. I always forget who he worked for, but he worked for the government, but here in Syracuse. So he had a federal job. And then he retired, and he was a radio freak. He did not only call in and listen to our show religiously every day, but he listened to all of the local shows in Syracuse, New York, and would call into those shows. He would call into the coaches' shows. Jim Boeheim used to do a radio show. The football coach always did a radio show, and he would call in regularly on those shows. So he loves Syracuse sports and is plugged into Syracuse. But his great talent, was that he loved, I think in his government job, he's like a researchy guy, like he's in front of a computer screen all day doing researchy type stuff. And he loved history, and he loved to research sports history. And he would bring these things to the table all the time. And one of the other things he would do, which I loved, I am endeared by people who want us to get things right. Sometimes when you're talking off the top of your head, you don't get every single thing that comes out of your mouth right. I mean, heck, if you watch the Kornheiser-Wilbon show, the end of the show, every show, they have a built-in segment where they come in and they do corrections. So in a half-hour show, even fully produced with people working with them to put all their information together, and the little grid that they have along the right-hand side and the little clock, they still make mistakes because they are shooting from the hip a lot of times, or they're trying to remember something and maybe they get a stat wrong. So we're human as hosts. I always have admitted that, that's for sure. While I'm certainly consider myself knowledgeable, I'm human. And sometimes you make mistakes. And Steve would from time to time chime in and make a correction or give us some perspective on a stat, or say, or if I didn't have a stat, I said, I know it was a blowout, and he'd go get the stat. So Phil, you did exactly that. You did a Steve in North Syracuse there by giving me that correct stat that I was looking for, which, was about that Lemar game where he went nuts. So it was 199 yards that he ran for against Syracuse. And then in another game, he ran for another 108. So tally it all up, and the guy ran for over 300 yards in 2 games against Syracuse. Need we say anything more than that about a quarterback? So, yeah, thanks for that, Phil. That was awesome. Thank you for jumping in on that. All right, a couple of other things. Love. Let's talk about Jordan Love, the Packers quarterback, getting the operation on the left hand now. This is not the right hand. This is the left hand, and it's his thumb. I shouldn't point at my pinky. It's his thumb. And the Packers, all signs are that he's going to be back for the opener. So Dalton Wasserman saying he didn't think it's that big a deal, and neither do I. This is a guy that knows this system and so forth. So I think we're in good stead there. The Najee Harris news is also interesting. You heard me talk with Dalton about that. Naji was in a fireworks accident on July 4th. Remember years ago, of course. JPP, all us Giant fans will remember that. Goes down in infamy. The guy ends up losing some fingers, does come back to play football, was never really quite the same player after that. Glad that he's okay, but again, the dangers of working with fireworks. So Naji had gotten a firework in the eye. So that sounded crazy, like, whoa. And it was very, very hush-hush about, how bad it was and what kind of recovery time and stuff. But obviously he's doing fine. So he's back in camp with the Chargers, and that'll be a very interesting backfield. How is that backfield going to go down, especially for all us fantasy freaks out there with Omarion Hampton, who's kind of the young upstart, getting some reps, especially while Najee's been out. All right. And now Naji back in the fold. And how were they 50-50 that? Is it going to be a little more the vet in Naji, or are they going to see the immense talent in Hampton? And is it going to be like a 60-40 Hampton? And they're going to let that game breaker kind of do things? Because we know what Naji is. But we don't really know for sure what Hampton is yet. But, those coaches, they like those, as they say, those bright, shiny objects sometimes. So we'll see how that all goes down. All right, I want to get to a couple of other topics. Let me just give myself a breather since I'm doing all the talking. Feel free to jump in the comments. So if you are watching live, jump in a question, a comment, anything you want, and I'll try to pop them up while we do a few more minutes after this break. Yeah. So we'll do a few more minutes right after this break. I just get a word here from our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, the mattress and sofa outlet, who are the presenting sponsors of today's broadcast. Stick around. Considering that we sleep nearly 1/3 of our lives, buying the right mattress is essential. At Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofa Outlet, you'll get a unique experience, one that saves you 30 to 70% off retail prices on top-of-the-line mattresses like Sapphire Sleep. At Box Drop, you'll schedule a mattress fitting appointment and get one-on-one service directly with Paul, the owner. No middleman. Family-owned, huge savings, no-pressure sales designed to save you time and money. And now Box Drop Syracuse has sectional sofas and love seats as well, with prices designed to fit your budget. Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofas. Set up your appointment today at boxdropsyracuse.com. All right, we're back. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. No Boy Green today. He is traveling back from Jets camp. Had a fabulous experience, it sounds like, yesterday down there in East Rutherford. And don't forget that Boy Green and I will be joining you in his big tailgate / Jets event, Jets Cowboys, mid-October or early October. My son and I will be on the trip. So I know some of you that are in the feed right now or will listen to this video will be there as well. We have about 60 people coming to cheer on the Jets Jets, and there's no better team to cheer against than the Dallas Cowboys, which is why I'm going, baby. It's all about anti-Cowboys for me. So I'll be wearing Jets green that day. My son Isaiah will be with me as well. He lives down in the New York metropolitan area, so it's going to be a lot of fun to do that. And of course, I've been hearing about all the lovely, lovely food being prepared by the chef, who is a big fan of Boy Green's digital platform at Boy Green Daily. So check that out as well, of course. If you haven't already subscribed to Boy Green's channel, make sure that you subscribe to that. And don't forget, subscribe to our channel at MC Show Digital. We are moving quickly above 200 subscribers and heading towards 300. And once we get to 300, the David Tyree, The Catch, right above me here on my wall, signed, beautifully framed and signed picture, we're going to give to one of those 300 people going out the door in the frame with the mat, the whole 9 yards, just coming off my wall in a nice, safe envelope to you. And you'll get to put it in your man cave or on your wall or wherever you're going to display it. Obviously, if you're a Giant fan, you might like that a little bit more. But even as a Jet fan, I mean, think of it. I mean, the Patriots going down, an undefeated season, washed away. Come on, man. I mean, even if you are Jets, I know Jets and Giant fans oftentimes don't like each other, sometimes find each other obnoxious. the fact of the matter is that, beating the Patriots, no matter who it is always a fun thing. Speaking of the Patriots, you heard me talking about Tayvon Henderson with Dalton Wasserman a little bit. So here's another guy. He's been lighting it up there, I say, a little bit in camp and certainly in preseason game number 1. So we'll see if he continues to evolve. What is that running back split going to be like? Boy Green and I, when we were talking on Monday, I mentioned this whole thing about the running back and the idea that the running back, I don't want to say a dime a dozen because it's trivializing it too much. These guys are phenomenal athletes. I have great respect for the running back. Frankly, I'm a little disturbed by how the running back isn't, quote, getting paid these days like other positions. Nice to see James Cook getting his deal, but I still think the running back is an underpaid position. I think it will come full circle and will come to a point where running back salaries will go back up again. But right now, it kind of, the unappreciated offensive, toy, dare I say, that every NFL team has, and everybody wants to throw them out after about 5 or 6 years because you run them into the ground and then that's the end of them, and nobody wants to pay them even when they're 26, 12, and 27 years old. Oh, I'm going to pay the running back. The Giants didn't want to do it, and look at what happened to them. So I do not like what's going on with the running back position, but I am a great fan of the running back. And certainly that's an interesting situation with Tayvon Henderson. It kind of really reminds me of what's going on with the LA Chargers, you got a vet and you got a youngster, and the youngster's got kind of this explosive nature to him. And are you going to give him more time, or are you going to let the vet kind of take care of things because you don't want the ball turned over and you don't want the ball on the ground? And we know the flashy rookie a lot of times, it pops out of there from time to time. So we'll see how that goes down there. I didn't get a chance. I wanted to ask Dalton, and I'm sorry that I didn't, but just, we took enough of his time. We'll have him on every week, but I did want to talk to him about Mason Taylor. And I know Boy Green, I saw some of his material that he's already put out on his digital site from Jets camp. But he seemed very, very high on Mason Taylor. We know Joe Bartle, our fantasy expert, who, by the way, will be back with us live on Friday. In his usual spot at 10:30. So Boy Green and I will be together live 10:30. We're also putting together a bunch of interviews. We're doing a bunch of interviews tomorrow, and we'll start dropping them tomorrow and past tomorrow. We're doing Inside the Jets, Inside the Giants, and Inside the Bills. Ed Valentine is joining us for Giants stuff. Anthony Prohaska, who's going to be our regular guy for the Bills, really cool guy, is going to be joining us this week as well. And Jake Asman is with us tomorrow as well. So we will drop those interviews between tomorrow and Friday, likely. I don't know if anything will bleed into Saturday, but we will do an in-depth look at all 3 camps, all 3 preseasons at this particular point, injury update, anything that we can collect from those guys. So you don't want to miss that stuff, even though it won't be presented live to you. We will have it for you, and you can certainly check it out. So again, that's why you want to be a subscriber at MC Show Digital. That's why you want to hit that thumbs up and like us, because you want to make sure you hit that bell too for the notifications, so that you don't forget that when we're putting out content, even when we're not live, you know when it's going down, and you can see when it's going to pop up in your feed. So that's what we want for you, to give you the best possible coverage. As you know, we cover all 3 New York football teams, and we'll be doing that all season long. We'll have Dalton Wasserman all season long talking all NFL issues. We always kind of hit him up with some of the New York stuff, but we will certainly delve into the big national story. So if something's going on in Kansas City, something's going on with the Chargers, if something's going on with the Raiders, whatever it is, Dalton will hit us up there. And of course, we'll have the fantasy segment, as I mentioned, every single Friday with Joe Bartle. We don't just stop doing that once we get to our drafts and everybody is drafted. I know a lot of people already drafting their fantasy teams. We do that all season long with Joe. So Joe will be doing waiver wire pickups with us every week. You can throw trade proposals into the comments. Again, that'll be a live interactive session with Joe every week on Friday. So we'll keep that interactive for you all year long. But Joe's a great resource. Listen, and do me a favor too. Joe he's super knowledgeable. I don't always agree with some of the things he has to say about certain players. Him and I are going to draft 2 teams in a couple of weeks. We're going to be in the same room drafting for our Champs League for the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. We're going to be in the same room right here. It's going to be at Smoky Bones in Clay, not too far from where I live. Joe's traveling from Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, to come to this draft. Joe and I will pick different players, and there are going to be players that he likes and I don't, and there are going to be players that I love that he doesn't. And that's just the way it goes. So Joe is an advice giver. Is he right 100% of the time? No. And no, not is any fantasy guy or any football insider that we're going to talk to, frankly. It's a matter of getting some, getting some expertise, getting it from people who are around it all the time that essentially study it and give it. But you can't take their word as gospel. So please, if Joe says, make this trade, don't make this trade, pick up this guy, and then it doesn't work up for you, draft this guy, and it turns out to be a disaster. Don't blame Joe. Just understand it's advice. So what you do is you take the advice, you listen to it, and you go, I don't really like that advice, or that sounds like good advice, and you take it. And then you live with the decision. You don't put it on the fantasy guy or the insider because you decided to make a decision. So I always say that to fantasy football players, because I think a lot of times we get carried away and we think, my guy, that guy told me to do this and do that. And look, I'm in last place. Okay. He didn't tell you. He gave you advice and you decided to take it. So take it or not. That's always the choice. But I'll tell you, during the regular season, I will reach out to Joe. Fortunately for me, I can just text him. He's become a friend as much as a colleague. And I can say, hey, Joe, I'm really struggling with these two guys. Who should I start, this guy or that guy? And then not only will he say, I would do this, but then he'll give me a reason. And then I will look at that and I go, I didn't think of that. I think I'm going to do what Joe said. I kind of like that reason, and I'm on the fence as it is. I'm going to go with Joe's piece of advice. Or I go, I don't agree with that at all. I think Joe's dead wrong about that. You know what? I'm going to take guy B, and I'll flip the guy B. In the end, remember, it was my choice, right? Joe gave me the advice. I asked for it, but then I looked at the advice and I evaluated it and decided what to do. So I always say, kind of be, as the Seinfeld folks used to say, the master of your domain. Okay, I know they meant it in a completely different way, but be the master of your fantasy team. You're the one pulling the strings and making the decisions. Now go out and seek advice. I highly advise you to do that because there are people out there like Joe Bartle that give it and are great at it, and a lot of the time will hit it, and will give you very good. Even if they don't hit it, they'll give you good, rational reasons why they feel it's X over Y or Y over Z. All right. They will give you a reason. And then again, you take that advice and decide what to do. So I just think that's one of the things you should always know. It is what it is. All right. Let me see if I can jump a few more comments before we get out of here on a live Wednesday show. Let's see. We got to have the war talk. So thank you, Badshaw, who's always out there. Badshaw, always appreciate you being here. You've been here almost since the get-go of the start of our channel here. So he says, Giants are going down Saturday. That's right. Saturday is the Snoopy Bowl. Jets and Giants, as we know, are doing some scrimmages against each other in camp. Boy Green was there yesterday, but they will play in their preseason game on Saturday. I think what'll be interesting here, Badshaw, is who plays and who doesn't. Now that we have the 3-game preseason, how are coaches going to handle it? Because when we had the 4, it used to be that a lot of coaches, and I'll say all because everybody's a little different, but a lot of coaches would play their starters the most amount of time in game 3. And then they would give pretty much all the starters off game 4. And you might get a touch of them in game 1 and game 2. But game 3 was the one, all right, we're going to play a whole half, of the starters. Or we're going to play at least a quarter or a quarter plus of the starters. And we're going to risk injury here in a game that doesn't matter to the standings, which is all football coaches care about is wins and losses, right? So I don't know that it matters that much who wins this Saturday, but I'll take the bait here, Badshaw, and I'll say, no, you're going down, man. Your Jets are going down, Badshaw. Okay? You're going down. All right? Jackson Dart's going to throw wild on the Jets. And you know what? The good thing is all of the quarterbacks in our room are actually good. You don't even have, Tyrod Taylor right now. I don't know if you heard Tyrod is getting some kind of procedure, and he's going to be out the rest of the preseason, I understand. So he's going to be ready supposedly for the opener. So I don't know. Does that mean we're getting more Justin Fields, or we get more of that 3rd and 4th guy on your roster whose names are not exactly household names, so much so that I don't even have him inside my head, even though I read about him this morning. I was like, who are these guys? What? All right. So without Tyrod, I'm feeling confident, actually, that the Giants are going to put up a very good effort against the Jets. But I will be curious from both teams' perspectives, who plays, how much the starters play, because, again, now we are in a 3-game preseason situation here. So on and on it goes. Let me jump back over to Phil here, my Giants faithful fan here in blue, saying, I'm a big Giants fan, cautiously optimistic about this year, but schedule is brutal. Well, that's why, Phil, I agree. Be cautiously optimistic because the schedule is brutal. The Giants have a mammoth of a schedule. They just drew all the short straws. I still struggle to understand these days. Years ago, the NFL put in place a system that was supposed to essentially make the teams that had bad records, the worst teams in the league, play the easiest schedule the following year, at least theoretically. All right. And of course, there's always teams that climb from the bottom in a year and become miraculously good. Maybe they draft the quarterback of their dreams. Something happens. They make a big trade, whatever. Team just comes together. So there are reasons sometimes why teams pop from the bottom of the standings to the top, even in a singular year. But barring that, the schedule was to be designed outside of your division to be that way. And then all this, you got to play this division and this division outside of your division began to come into play. I don't even know how many years ago that was. And the Giants have just drawn the short straw, and they've got two brutal other divisions that they're going to play. And then you only have a few free games. All right, so in those free games, they gave the Giants a little bit of a break because they were one of the worst teams in football last year. But that's just a couple of games. They drew the short straw in the other two divisions, and their own division is really tough this year. So put it all in the blender, and the Giants just have a brutal schedule. So my thought would be this, Phil. Be cautiously optimistic. So am I. And I'm going to go into this season, glass half full. Okay, for sure. But what I want to see is, sure, I want to see a good record, and I'd love for the Giants to finish even over 500. I'd be thrilled. But the fact of the matter is, what I want to see is improvement. What I want to see is on-the-field improvement. I want a competitive team. I want to see a team that can battle in the fourth quarter. I want to see the Giants' defense starting to come back together the way it was years ago when the Giants were great. I said it the other day. The Giants, the glory days of the Giants, even through the Eli years, were built around great defense, and in the Lawrence Taylor years, obviously was LT and company. And then, it became other players. We had the big four up front with Justin Tuck and Michael Strahan. And, that was, it was the defense, the defensive line. It was pass rush. And the Giants haven't been able to find that. And while they've got problems all over the place, including the offensive line, which maybe is my greatest concern going into the season, the fact of the matter is that I think they need to build this team around a great defense again. That's when they've had their success. Sometimes it's just best to go back to your roots and do it that way. And so I hope that the Giants do that. So we'll see if they do. We kind of go from there. Hey, Boy Green's still out there chiming in on the chat. So let's go to him. He says, do any of the starters even play? I don't know, especially when they do a joint practice against each other. That's a good point. So these two teams are, battling on the practice field. I heard Boy Green in his show earlier today talking about, on one field, he said, unfortunately, it was the furthest field from where he was sitting, because if you've ever gone to Giants or Jets camp, and I've had the pleasure to go to Giants camp just the year that Saquon was a rookie. So I'm going back a little ways. Boy Green and I went down there. And where the fans are, there are stands positioned all around the different fields, but there are several fields, and the fields run at different angles. One's running this way, and another one offshoots this one like a giant L, and then there's one at the far end that runs in the other direction. And you can't be everywhere. Basically, you kind of, as a fan, you kind of settle into where you were. Now, as credentialed media, we were able to walk from field to field, so that was phenomenal. But I know Boy Green was not there yesterday as media, even though he was shooting some stuff for his channel. So you're a little more restricted. And therefore, if you're at this field, you can't see what's going on in the other field. And I heard Paul say this morning that the Giants and Jets ones, offense and defense, were going at it with each other on one of the other fields for a bit, and he wasn't able to see that. Now, there were interesting things going on in front of his field as well, or on his field. But you can't, it's hard to see everything when you got three fields operational and coaches all over the place. So it will be interesting with these two teams going at it in practice, and the ones playing the ones in practice. Are they going to want to go ones against ones in the game? Are they going to even risk it? Because sometimes when you get to do that in practice, you can learn just as much, if not more, than you did on the field. Because on practice, of course, get to talk to the guys in between plays, so you can stop play for a minute, and you have coaches actually out on the field. Obviously, you can't do that in a real game. So you can have quicker instruction. You could have quicker reaction to things, other stuff kind of, you don't get to it until film comes, the week after the game. Hey, let's go back and look at some of the mistakes we made. Hey, let's look at the mistake we made right now. That's one of the benefits of practice and doing these scrimmages, which I think are a marvelous idea. And I think the NFL will continue to do this. So Jets and Giants literally button heads in practice, and very true by Boy Green. Will any of the starters even play? We'll see. I think the Giants need to keep rolling out their starters. They've had such terrible starts to the last few seasons. And with certainly Brian Dable and Joe Shane's jobs certainly feeling like they're a bit in the balance this year, depending on how things go, I got to believe that they want to get off to a good start. And that won't be easy. They're playing the Commanders and Jaden Daniels in game one. That's not going to be that's not going to be easy. All right, a couple of the comments before we go. Let me see if I can squeeze them in. Phil's got another one here. PFF ranked Jenks number 1 in pass blocking in last week's preseason game. So that's always nice. Okay. But again, I would say this, Phil, preseason stats, it's preseason. Nice to see. What I didn't see from the Giants and why I came out of that game with great worries in the offensive line is I didn't see the run blocking. And to me, any good line, you run block first. You have to be good at run blocking before you can get to pass blocking. So you're right. They didn't give up any sacks. And, the stats say, PFF says, because PFF, remember, they're statistical based. Hey, the Giants came out of the game fantastic. Okay. All right. I know they measure pressures too. They don't just measure sacks. But to me, that line didn't pass the look test. And I'm extremely concerned. And I'm forgetting his name now. I think it's Hunter. Maybe is his last name. It's James Hunter, I think it is. James Hudson. I'm sorry, James Hudson. James Hudson is the lineman that's filling in right now for Andrew Thomas. And Hudson did not look good. I mean, he was playing left tackle, which is not where they hope he's going to play when their starting left tackle is on the field. But Hudson looked shaky. He got penalized a couple of times, and some guys are getting around him pretty quick. I was like, oh boy. And when's Andrew Thomas back? Quick. Let's get Andrew Thomas back on the field. So, look out there. All right, and we'll go to this one last. Bad show, you'll get the last word. Why wouldn't you? He said, Manchild, the game matters to me. I can talk smack on you for the rest of the year. All right, you're right. You can. You're right, Bad show. Okay, so I'll get in rooting crouch, dare I say, rooting stance, as the great Robin Williams once said, yawping stance in the movie The Dead Poets Society. I'll get in rooting stance for my Giants in a preseason game, because I know I got to deal with all you Jet freaks. I'm going to see you in a few weeks, and I'm sure I'm going to be dealing with you all season long, trying to keep you, excited about your team, but within reason. Got to be within reason with me, Pat Shaw. That's where we'll always parse our words. If we do, is I'm a very reasonable person. I look at my own team reasonably. I will look at your team reasonably. I will look at every team in the NFL reasonably. Of course, there are some teams I hate, like the Cowboys and the Eagles, that maybe I won't be quite as rationed and reasonable when I talk about them. But outside of my personal biases, dare I say, I try to push those aside, and I kind of pride myself, dare I say, a bit of a journalist. So I hope that I can, continue to be that way on our digital platform here today. All right, look, as they say, I'm just talked out. Like I said, I like to have conversations rather than just talk by myself here. So Boy Green will be back with me on Friday. And we will do our bit with Joe Bartle. So if you have questions for Joe, show up in the live chat. You can even send them to us in advance. We'll try to be wary of you sending comments in. If you missed any part of today's live show, of course, we will put it back out on our channel, on our YouTube channel, and on our social media platforms. I don't know, Boy Green might have to do a little quick editing or something because, of course, the beginning of the show was a little messed up thanks to my technical snafu. And again, I apologize for any of you that were, sitting and waiting at 11 o'clock and then found out what's going on. They're in the middle of a question here, and they popped on the air somewhere around 11:06, 11:07. So my apologies, completely my fault. And hopefully it didn't mess things up for you too much. But I did go back again with Dalton and circle back and answer the questions. Ask him the questions and have him answer the questions that we missed because it was just me and him and nobody else. So sorry about that. Won't happen again, I promise. Now I know the system. So it's good to learn from your mistakes. And certainly I learned a couple today. Thanks to Boy Green for chiming in. Safe travels back to New York. Boy Green, we'll see you back here in Central New York soon. And again, live feed on Friday, 10:30 with Joe Bartle. We'll be dropping a bunch of stuff tomorrow. Probably at least 2 interviews are going to drop tomorrow. Probably Jake Asman of the Jets will drop tomorrow after we do that interview. We're doing it sometime in the mid-morning. So we'll try and get that out to you guys in the early afternoon. Ed Valentine's joining us, as I mentioned, and also Anthony Prohaska of the Bills. So over the next couple of days, we'll get that stuff out to you as well. But certainly a couple of those will drop tomorrow. So we'll get you up to date on all 3 New York football camps. All right, for Boy Green, it's the Manchild signing off here, folks. Thanks so much for watching. And again, if you missed any of it, it'll be available on our YouTube channel at MC Show Digital. Don't forget to subscribe. And once we get to that magical 300 number, that David Tyree framed autographed picture on my wall will go out the door. So try and help us race our way to 300 subscribers if you can. All right, we'll see you on Friday live for sure. Pay attention to what we're dropping the next couple days as well, as we're going in depth on all the New York football camps. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.